in our products. Hi all.
Буду джентльменом, уступлю слово Маше. Маш, держи кликер.
I'll be the gentleman and let the lady go first.
Когда мы приходим с обследованием процессов безопасной разработки, мы всегда...
When we come in to audit the processes of secure development, one of our first questions is about third-party libraries. Do you check them? That you pull into your perimeter? Are there people like that at all? I see Daria. Yeah, that matches with our stats. 90% of teams do not check these libraries that they pull from the outside, even if it's one of the key requirements in the GOST national standard. Even if it's not down to regulatory compliance, it's a fundamental stepping stone in our security. Yes, you might be sure in your own code. You do SAST, you do other checks, and you are secure, confidently secure. But through this, you introduce alien code into your perimeter. Reports are very vocal on this. They are referenced in the slide. 70 to 90% of applications and their code is accounted for by third-party libraries. 7 out of 10 apps use third-party components. They have their own code, yes, but they are not self-sufficient like this. 10 to 30% of runtime is proprietary code. So that's the ratio. 10 to 30% of own code, 70 to 90% is community-based or third-party outside components. This bit of statistics underscores once again the importance of this type of analysis. You cannot ignore it anymore. Yeah, this begs our favorite story. We had an audit where just 1% of the code was developed in-house. Yeah, that can happen as well. My name is Artem Puzankov. I work at PT. I'm head of the engineering practice implementation group. They're responsible for SAST, DUST, other STs. That's our team. We integrate those customer side. And my name is Maria Shkhavtsova. I engineer secure development processes and audit them for compliance, regulatory compliance, or just basic, plain old common sense. Let's start with SBOM. It's been discussed for a long time, many times, but not all people are aware of it. Some developers have never heard of it. You come to them, what's that? SBOM, BOM, inventory, what are you talking about? If there are some people who are still unawares, let's spell it out. It's software bill of materials, a list of all these software components, including outside libraries, including informational licenses and versions. There are SBOM generators that can express transitive dependencies as well. Here is an example in this slide. You apply the BOM generator to a code and you get as an output this type of specification of its components. Usually the tools that are used are Cyclone DX and SPDX, the formats. And there are a lot of tools that support it. I think Cyclone DX 1.6 was released recently. There are additional fields, attack coverage, for example. That's according to the Russian national standard. GOST, if you want to be certified nationally. So vanilla Cyclone DX no longer cuts it. You have to expand it
российском государстве, где
because
нужен
we have
особый
our sovereign standards with our own sovereign approaches to bill of materials files.
вообще чаще всего применяются на сегодняшний день. Это циклон DX
So
разработчика WASP,
Cyclone DX
это SPDTX Linux
by
создатель,
WASP,
Suite, это
SPDX
от
from Linux, and SPID
Такие же генераторы
from
тоже
ISO.
существуют с BOM. Их огромное
These are the
количество,
formats.
используются
Here are the
в
generators.
своей практике,
There is a
встречал
myriad of them.
бессмертное количество. И всегда
I
могут быть
stopped counting many years ago.
там может
And
быть
people keep
кто-то
arguing
очень
which one
яростно
is better.
спорит о том, что
Some advocate for SIFT,
показывают
others
того, что показывает циклон DX.
try and
Почему-то какие-то яростные истории про это возникают.
showcase Cyclone DX
Мое
as
наблюдение,
something
и
better.
вот один из ребят, находящихся в зале, делал
Here's my observation, and I know a person who is here who did this with their own hands. They merged different SBOM files from different generators. That's how you get the broadest set of fields in a SBOM file. That's even conceivable.
Их огромное количество, есть специфика.
So again, there is a myriad of tools.
С некоторых
There are
исходников там или
different applications where they are not compatible.
в принципе, в этой таблице максимальная совместимость
But
и используем
this slide shows most of them with their applicability and compatibility.
наверное, наиболее популярный и наиболее
My experience tells me that CIF is the most popular and complete generator out of the whole bunch.
SBOM-файлов, да, вроде бы все рассказали.
What can be the issues or challenges with SBOM files,
Различные SBOM-файлы от разных
even
генераторов.
after merging?
Но есть определенные проблемы.
There are still some hiccups.
Это неполнота данных, да, что не все
So data can be incomplete. Not all generators go as deep into the app
генератор под названием B не может залезть так глубоко в состав
because tool A will go to this level of depth, tool B will go further or not as far. So you have to run several tools, merge the outcomes, the outputs, and there is no standard for SBOM files. How to store it, what's its format, how often do you update it, how often do you compile it, what if it doesn't compile?
Он может быть пустым. Формально это
It can compile but be empty.
собран, мы видим зелененький пайплайн, радуемся.
It's a step, you see it in the pipeline, it's compiled, but, well, do check if it's empty. If you call it and there is nothing, you'll have a problem on your hands. So you need to have an inventory for each build.
Форматная несовместимость, вот, например, как я и сказал,
Formats are incompatible. Cyclone DX is not SPDX at all. They have special fields that differ, and we have the standard in Russia on top of that. More fields, less fields, Western tools, open source tools do not recognize these fields. There is no way to process it, what's expected to be there, but well, that's what you have living in Russia. Last but not least, versioning and relevance, because you have to have the link between SBOM files and the specific build. One of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human civilization. You have forking, you have many different builds, and it's not easy to attribute a SBOM file to this particular build. Let me hand it over to Masha for feeds.
Сделаю такое резюмирование к сбому, что это все-таки
To sum up on the files,
IT для инвентаризации.
it's a tool that IT uses for inventorization.
Того, что есть в вашем исходном
It's
коде.
a stock keeping tool to see what you have in your code. But then security guys can use it as well.
Сопоставляем с
You
существующими.
take the files
По сути,
and
наши фиды
check
—
them
это некие
against the
базы
feeds.
уязвимостей, которые общедоступны.
Our
Мы
feeds
всегда можем к ним
are
обратиться. Я
vulnerability
знаю
databases.
компании, которые вручную
Some
сравнивают
companies
свои сборники с
that I've seen
разными базами уязвимостей. Такой способ тоже
compare their SBOM files against known vulnerability bases manually.
при наличии даже простых open-source решений.
You can do this, but it's very labor intensive and doesn't make much sense since you have open source solutions for this.
Это, как правило, идентификатор.
What's to be found in feeds?
Могут быть и нет.
CVEs, CVE identifiers, Usually they're standardized, sometimes not.
Без проблем. То есть
You have a vulnerability, you enter it into the base, you give it a name,
обязательно даем
and you have your identifier.
а также при возможности
You
вендор.
have to provide a description,
Добавляем возможные
the vendor, if possible,
того, как можно
and
закрыть уязвимость,
POCs as well,
уязвимость
potential ways to
этого компонента.
eliminate the vulnerability or switch to another version of the component that doesn't have it. It's a database, it shows you the vulnerability. That's pretty straightforward.
Собственно говоря,
But then there are many databases like this. You can call them in different ways.
но в целом
Some of them are in the slide.
что каждая компания имеет в
But
том числе свои базы фидов. Мы как бы
any next company will have their own base of feeds.
нашей экспертизой, и в результате мы
We
получаем
have a collection of databases enriched with our expertise, all aggregated in PT-OSV.
Любят очень сильно
Let me add to this.
взять какой-нибудь open-source инструмент, перекрасить кнопочки, да, как
We like to take an open source
мы
solution,
пошли, за
give it a new
исключением
skin, and call it something Russian made.
вижу там ребята,
We are similar in this regard, but
годами конкретно
there are things that we have improved on significantly, not just the interface.
можете использовать
There are also many bases. You can use
они бесполезные. У нас есть
the
замечательные
bases that you like or all of them, but what makes it click together and work is
которые помогают нести
your expert knowledge.
и, соответственно, формировать
We have a dedicated team for that,
а,
which is the secret component in our base.
назвать анонсом, нет, я не знаю,
Not sure if it's an announcement. I'm not sure if it's going to be made available on the market, but we have our own enriched feeds.
уязвимости, которые
It aggregates most of the bases in the slide, some further bases as well, but
и обогащаем их своей
would need this on the slide.
ребят из ESCA.
But then we enrich it with our PT expertise.
В любом случае, опять же, будете использовать в случае, если мы
We have
сертифицированного пайплайна, который здесь
as
немножечко не
an element in the stack to have it certified if you need to. It wasn't included in the slide. So we have conventional SCA, right?
Мы получаем SBOM файл, да, на
Here is what it means. You receive a SBOM file.
это уже
You
довольно
all know this example. Log4j, it's been studied
поэтому планируем рассказывать прямо на кошечках, прямо на
sideways and all ways, but for a general audience, let's take this simple example.
у нас есть Log4j Core,
It's a BOM where we have
экосистема и
Log4j Core version 2.14, ecosystem Maven,
вот у меня
and the
задача
group.
сейчас. Например, CPE, который
Then we have the feeds,
Log4j. Далее.
TP, Apache Log4j.
И что, мы первым шагом SBOM получили, вторым
To check this thing against the other,
о том, что Log4j уязвим, и третьим
you have
действием
this entry that Log4j is vulnerable,
компоненты версии меньше 2.15.
and
Видим в проекте,
you see that components
CPE из NVD, проверяем, входит
earlier than 2.15
в диапазон уязвимых версий и отмечаем компонент как уязвимый.
are in the range of vulnerable
Тогда что
component
это?
versions.
Инструмент это база
It's a
знаний,
simple tool,
какие-то ограниченная версия
the feeds that provide knowledge,
и обработчик SBOM. Ну и вот
and a
сопоставить.
SBOM processor
Про сложный, Маша,
with this element to compare.
нет, я
The next step is to make it
простой инструмент.
into
Это чаще всего,
a
когда
more complex tool.
какие-то сторонние, да, SBOM-генераторы, как мы
The
упоминали,
simple way is to
там, SIFT и т.д.
omit
Используем
third-party BOM generators,
SBOM-инструмент,
but
который
have
формирует
your own
только с сорсов,
SBOM tool.
и там с каких-нибудь имиджей или бинарей, с чего
You
угодно.
can
То есть
that can get
SBOM-генератор.
imported pins, images, other sources.
Подожди чуть-чуть. Назад. Следующее — это в инструментах посложнее. Это управление уязвимостями. Соответственно, там,
Then more complex tools give you
если мы
vulnerability management features.
SCA инструментами,
Open source SCA tools
что лучшего, он прям молит как бы
do not have vulnerability management, except for the name.
при помощи данного инструмента.
It leaves very much to be desired. And then you might want to have integration with CI/CD and bug tracking.
На лету проверялось у вас, а бактрекеры для того,
In CI/CD to make it work online, and bug tracking
Ну, и автоматизация, которая
is to make the lives of developers easier. Yes, automation makes things even more secure in this case. Now, we have a workable solution, but there is still a challenge. If it's a small project, you can sometimes do it manually, but these are unique cases. For more complex cases, you run the tools, but it's a basic comparison. Your spam or the vulnerability and the vulnerability database. You don't know if you're calling the library at any given moment, which gives you a lot of false positives. 1% of own code, as we mentioned, yes, this will give you thousands of alarms for security people to process. We've heard the statistic, 23 minutes per vulnerability. Just 100 vulnerabilities will give you more than a week's worth of work. It's been said many times, but we'll tell you it once again. Depending on your responsibilities, security champion, OPSEC, or developer to be handling vulnerabilities, it increases the workload. Vulnerabilities start flying at you in the thousands, and it's like a full-time FTE, which is not realistic. Even if you do this, most of these findings will be false positives. Let me give you an example here. Log4j, one of my favorite examples. Yeah, I worked at a different company. There was this curious case. We all learned about Log4j. That was the D-Day. Everybody ran to exclude it, to eliminate it, to stamp it out from your systems. Released were halted, features were frozen. It took us 3 days to isolate it. But then I looked at the logs and saw that the vulnerable function was never called. So we wasted 3 days to stamp it out, whereas we never used it actually. Here is the logical next step, what we're getting at. Any SCA is good for you, but if you want to set up secure development processes, you have to avoid tech debt. And you need a way to address this. Yes, this gets us to the headline topic. The key takeaway from today is about reachability analysis. Having heard what we've laid out for you now, you see that the next step in SCA practices is reachability analysis. It's a new perspective on SCA. It's the next level. Here is what it does. The goal of this analysis is to determine if there is a path from application code to a vulnerability in the library. We used to flag vulnerable components and libraries, and we flagged it, issued alerts. But we never looked whether these functions were ever used. We just alerted that library as vulnerable, halting development. Reachability SCA is a new approach. You might be using a vulnerable library. We do not destroy your build here. OCA cannot do reachability. That's where you have such holes. SCA is about vulnerabilities that are already in your libraries, but then you check it for execution. So you have to look at the code, and you need tools to check it. What do we use to check the code? SAST, obviously. SCA as a standalone, as a basic solution, is no longer useful. You have to combine it with SAST. It gives you a sort of a platform, even. You either build out SCA with additional features, or you add additional features to SAST.
Только добавлю то, что мы выбираем уязвимые кусочки,
Well,
ищем по коду.
we look at the
Если есть
vulnerable
точка, да, мы выбираем.
sections.
Всё. Ну,
If they're called, if they're executed, we flag them. Pretty much, that's the idea. We looked at the specification, what feeds contain. Some of them go as specific as individual functions. Again, log4j. If we do not import GND lookup, if we do not call lookup, the execution doesn't have this vulnerability. The code isn't used. Why would we fix it or try to apply hotfixes or do urgent updates? Why would you halt development if there is no reachability to this part of code? This analysis gives you this granularity into potentially vulnerable components. So, yeah, here is the standard approach. It's an ideal version. Comparison of two tools. Conventional SCA identifies dependencies. The same for SCA plus reachability. Matching with CVEs, available in both columns.
Учет использования уязвимого кода, да? Ну вот он, вот куда закрылась.
Consideration of using the vulnerable code. That's where you have the difference. Conventional SCA doesn't do that.
Уровень приоритизации.
Reachability analysis adds this. Prioritization is usually limited as a capability in SCA, and it's higher with reachability. The number of false positives, one of our major battles at all times. It's lower in reachability. As an engineer, I'm happy with this table, but myself as an analyst is not satisfied yet. I want to see the trend and the actual change. I see that it's better, but what's the improvement? How is it quantified? What's the outcome of this automation effort? Research shows, and these are the parameters that they investigate. I think we'll publish them or get back to the slide where they were referenced. You have to recognize that the share of vulnerabilities that do not need to be addressed are 80 to 100%. If you see 100%, it's a marketing trick. But 80% is quite achievable, reachable, let's say. So you'll have to analyze 10 to 20 vulnerabilities out of 100. This is calculated in person hours. That's easier for you to apply to yourself. I prefer monetary values. So 150 vulnerabilities will take less time by 9 developer days for you. Yes, not all vulnerabilities that remain will be addressed. Some will not be mitigated. Some vulnerabilities are easily addressed through patching. But any experienced engineer will take 23 minutes as the industry average. Alexey Smirnov mentioned this just today. We take 40 minutes. I err on the side of caution usually because we don't live in an ideal world. So that's 9 work days per 100, 150 vulnerabilities. Just multiply it by your payroll. It's a month in savings for 3 to 4 apps. So, takeaways. Better things are better, but we'll have to add something to it. Do reachability analysis. There aren't that many tools in Russia, and nobody or no tool does fully fledged reachability analysis. Some tools that are available, some tools are available commercially, but they'll cost you
про него.
as many digits as there is in the phone number. So is our reachability analysis a no-go? Well, sometimes these huge figures pay off if you speak about major integrators. Even expensive commercial solutions can be applicable. In other cases, if you don't have this tool at hand, you should do something. Something is always better than nothing. It depends on your objectives. If you need SCA and everybody needs this, SCA plus SAST covers 80% of your security in the pipeline. It's a given. So if you don't have commercial tools, you can use regular SCA. There are open source solutions as well.
I can support Masha. I know that some people use it manually, choose without any automation. Of course, I thank them at all. They like their profession very much, but also we have non-open source tools, and they don't allow us to attach external databases. Everything that requires additional development is not as good, but if we use open source and develop something for it, that's your own development. Then there are some transitive dependencies. It's a challenge for the industry, I think. In directive dependencies, you can see the challenges of the source code, but in transitives, well, if you start asking questions, then you see a mega graph without end, without beginning, a huge web code. It's a challenge for our industry. So, but of course, doing nothing is not a solution. And coming to an end of the presentation, I would like to finalize by saying that if you could use, as we write here, the reachability analysis tools, I can add a little bit. If your development is a large-scale one, if you have more than 100 developers, then we really need reachability tool. It will be economically feasible. Then you need to overcome existing limitation. If you cannot buy foreign-made tool, you can use this one. Take it, use it, pay for it any way you like. Wait a little bit, maybe in Russia we're going to have some vendors. Well, we have more than one vendor in Russia who can do it. Use Russian vendors if you like. Everything is under development and people are ready to improve their products. If you don't have such capability, if you don't need it right now, if you have a small company, not a large enterprise, use usual SCA and build your tool with appropriate mindfulness, efficiency, reasonability. SCA plus SAS is 80% of your security. This is something you have to start with in terms of secure development. Now, and the final words, we would like to thank you for coming, for listening to us. Please evaluate our presentation, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Я думаю, вы можете подходить к стойкам в порядке.
I think, please come to the microphone. Yes, there is a microphone over there. Only one. Oh, I have a question about transitive dependencies. We analyzed it in our company, and now in our Russian market, there is no tool that could reach, that could analyze reachability. We don't know any of such tools locally. Thank you. Hi, thank you for the presentation. You compared false positives. Is there any statistics about false negatives? How can we avoid errors here? I don't know which slide was it. Statistics with the calculation of economic efficiency. There is statistic. It's a question about if we have statistics about avoiding false negatives. Well, let me say that I did some personal research. Our tool found the libraries which were not announced. In the solution that I saw, I didn't have any falses. Thank you. Moreover, additionally, we found the availabilities which the developer didn't announce. Hi, thank you for the presentation. You said that reachability analysis is a rare case for SCA. Why? On the one hand, it seems it's easy because we build AST, calls, chains, and this is a reachability analysis without any limitations and so on and so forth. It looks as if version 1 is easy to be built. On the one hand, if it's too important, too heavy, how can we trust it? Because it says, well, who can check it? Thank you, I got you. Let me try to answer. Reachability analysis, as you said, everything is easy at stage 1. If we start taking into account something else, we have to add databases, tokens, proofs of concept for operation. Then we have a story about SAS looking at source codes. If we have an SCA solution, you have to look at SOST. If you don't have SOST, it's very difficult to write it from scratch. And combining all the factors related to simple version 1, you will see it is not as simple as it seemed. For one language, it's more or less good. But what about a group of languages, a group of ecosystems? And then we see that this is not easy at all. That's why our industry didn't reach the implementation of super solution for reachability analysis. I think I answered your question. What about trust to reachability analysis? There are two things. One thing seems to be easy. On the other hand, if vendors go to that solution for such a long time, then it's not easy. And can we trust what they provide at the moment? Well, can you answer? It's easy. We call the function from the code and we can trust it because we see that in this library, vulnerable functionality is used, full stop. That if we see that the vulnerable piece of code is used in this library, so this is so. How can we not trust it? We see it clearly. We see the vulnerable component, the call to the vulnerable component. You believe yourself, because if you see it, it's all right. What about transitives? Transitive libraries in the current versions are not checked. So you can use a standard SCA and see are there any vulnerabilities in the transitive libraries. The first question was what to do with transitives. In the current implementation, we don't know any locally developed solutions with analysis for transitive dependencies. Dependency hell, if you know this term. This is exactly about it. We have to use all the dependencies, and it's yet to be done. We don't have the resources to solve the problem. And then if we do that, who needs it actually? Yes, there is something to think about. I would like to add something to the previous question. We all know that the statistic analysis tools have problems like falses, false positives. If statistic analysis is used, if it says that the code is not reachable, the call is not reachable, you take a certain decision that there are no vulnerabilities, but actually, in fact, the vulnerability is there and the code is reachable. Of course, if we miss that kind of vulnerability, it's a bad thing. Thank you for your question. I would like to add to the previous one. It's a problem of trust to SaaS technology. As I see it, we have a card in the database saying that this component is vulnerable. We have a description of what part of the code is vulnerable. We take this description and give it to SaaS. And with the help of SAST, we look for this function. It looks as if all SAST analyzers can do that. Well, where is the light? All SAST analyzers can do that. If not, then SimGrab can do it. Outsource-based tool. You can have a certain pattern, a rule, and look for it. Search it. Can we trust vendor-based technology? Can we think that it will not miss any vulnerabilities? Well, I would rather trust it. Of course, it can miss something, but it's not a rocket science, it's not anything critical. So electricity is not working and the microphone is not operating and they cannot... oh, it works. Actually, let me tell you that this is rocket science as far as I think, and there are a lot of problems there. Statistic analysis problems are endless and they are mentioned at each conference. Of course, look, for example, at statistics. 70% of vulnerabilities were eliminated, but maybe some of those cases were wrongly eliminated. In our limited research, we had about, well, a limited number of libraries, and we didn't have any missed falls. And of course, we used some of the libraries where we knew about vulnerabilities and we knew where they were. We continue our research, and at the end of it, we're going to report what we have as a result. Usually, we have standard reports, and we can see look through the critically important vulnerabilities, and within this process, we recommend to do it. One thing is that we say that here there is a responsibility 100%, but what about all the other libraries. So it's about a process, building a process with its own requirements. What we told you is only part of the process. Thank you for a very good question. Thank you for your presentation. My question is about GHOST format. SDX. I am from the product company, and the lab sent us a file with an example of Cyclone DX, which was strange, which couldn't be generated, and in the end, we asked questions how to generate it. They didn't tell us, and we wrote GSOMs manually. It's very bad. Are there generators? Oh yes, we have them. They are commercial, only commercial. When we were under verification process, we did it manually. Now we corrected it already, but some time ago we did it manually. What about specifications? Can we do it ourselves manually? Please come to us after the questions and let us discuss it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your question. The question is like this: how do you define a vulnerable function in a vulnerable library? If we talk about reachability of the code analysis, we must take a vulnerable function in the library and see the vulnerability in the code. How do you take the data about it? From public data? It depends on the library. If we talk about our product, we use our own FIDO base. Other products use their own bases. It's a public basis and enriched local base. And they use the feeds they have. So it's more or less manual. In our case, it's already automated. We have several engines of stat analysis, and we use different engines to find the calls in the source code. We work with source codes, and we try to look for a call to a vulnerable function in the code. Very often, in the descriptions, it's very vague about description of what actually is vulnerable and which is not, and we have to look at various exploits and reports to find the right description. Yes, we have an innumerable number of bases, and in one of those millions of bases, I don't know, well, about 100 bases actually exist. In one of them, you may have a vulnerable function which is missing there. And maybe you are going to be an author of the next vulnerability, because from time to time, new vulnerabilities appear. Thank you. So we have to choose. One more question. Yes, please. Thank you for the presentation. In our company, we try to solve the same problems, and I want your opinion about the following. In the library, we have certain reachability, let's call it non-reachable, and tomorrow it became reachable. How do you solve this problem? From time to time, you recheck those libraries. It's a problem of updating databases and sources for the databases. How quickly do we react to changes? If your library becomes reachable, how fast are you going to use that new information? That's it. It's a process of monitoring. It's one of the features of the CA, monitoring of components. Standard SCA function. So you check it from time to time. And one more question. Maybe I missed it in your report. You say that there are SCA tools which analyze reachability. I don't know such tools. We're looking for such tools. In Russia, officially, honestly, few people tell us about that, which means that some people make first steps in this direction, but they have not been finalized. So vendors do not say that they are available, but hot scoring and BTM AE, two vendors say they have it. But PTA we give to our users in the test mode. So I tried to do it accurately and softly. We are an early bird in this area, and we want to get feedback from our users. And we're ready to listen to you, change something if we missed something. In our research, it works, but the sample is too small. I see. Thank you.
Зарубежных много, которые платные.
We have a lot of things abroad, but they are all commercial.
Добрый день.
Your question,
Спасибо большое за
please.
доклад. Было очень приятно
I
послушать
thank you for the presentation. The question is like this. You told us about an approach which helps you reduce the workload on the developer, which is good.
Ну, скорее мы их отодвигаем сразу.
We shift developers to the next stage of development. Critical pulses. If it is 100% reachable, is processed in the first place. We just prioritize them. All the rest will also be processed. We need to have it, we need to check it in the first place. What about the next release? If we include it in the next release, do you say that this is false positive, false negative? Otherwise, we shall have them again and again. Yes, we put the flags there. SCA is a little different. What previously was not vulnerable, in a week's time will become vulnerable. So, and sometimes it's too early to put a flag. Previously, it wasn't used. And we disregard. If it was not used, we mark it. If we use it, we include it. So you have to understand that it's a process of management in the company. It's not about the tool, it's about the process. After the presentation, let's talk about the process. It's not about the tool, it's the process. Hi. The question is about your threat base. It's a combination of different bases, but in different bases there are different libraries and they can look at threats differently. We use our own evaluation system. And we use, first of all, PTS, and we evaluate the way they do. Our databases use criticality evaluation of that kind. So we duplicate it with certain corrections if necessary. For example, if we don't have a threat, but we find it somewhere. I'd rather address the specialist that deals with that problem in our company, because I am not in a position to answer your question now. But in general, we rely on common sense, as usual.
Я скорее не вопрос буду задавать, а в коричневой.
It's not a question.
Во-первых, не согласен с вашими оценками.
First of all, I don't agree with your evaluation of the workload. It's statistic. our evaluation is different from that
Что-то
statistics.
неожиданное скажу. Мне казалось, это очень просто.
Maybe I'll tell you something unexpected.
Подход такой, прогоняется.
The approach is like this. We run an open source code. We find 150 or 200 incidents, 80%. If we can just update and forget about it.
Таких библиотек у нас опять
It's not 40 minutes, it's 2 minutes. We have 46% of libraries. When we update something, we look at the functionality. If a library is upgraded, if we have to upgrade, for example, version 4.3.1, it's now 4.3.2. If there is a bigger gap, then we have to look at reachability. Let me add to in the statistics. Most of the libraries are updated on a regular basis. I don't know how many of them out of the total. If I go back, yes, 80 to 85% are updated. Yes, it's your personal statistics. We have to take it into account. Even if we take 66%, it takes 23 minutes to process. And reachability. In the off zone last year, people from VK had a presentation. There are some vulnerabilities in Java, XML, which invokes methods which are not openly used by the program. So if we have a vulnerability of the medium criticality level, which invokes methods, and if we use a non-used vulnerable library, we can run it.
Если можно просто посистить, лучше все-таки просто
Я бы ответил, что здесь
I would say that it's better to clean it. SAS should understand the logic. If it could find it or not. It's a medium level criticality, so it will take us a lot of time to correct it. It's about the process, not about the tool. On the other hand, it's about the tool as well. And let me look at the statistics. 66% of vulnerabilities are eliminated by updates. And yes, we work with tools and we work with processes. Even the best possible tool wouldn't work without a process. And it depends on what kind of process you use, how well you build your process, and well, it defines the efficiency of your tool. Dependency check and try it. Did they use it or not? They say for some languages they learned to use vulnerabilities in transitives. And you forgot about the dollar. Who? They also say they support reachability. Well, we looked at it some time ago. We also say they claimed that, but we didn't confirm that, and they didn't confirm. But thank you for your comment. We looked for that, but we didn't find the proof. Maybe they have it. Hi. Thank you for the presentation. A short question. Please tell me For what kind of languages do you do you support your reachability GSTS?
Ага, сейчас.
Now,
Спасибо,
just a
Валера.
moment. Help from the audience. SCA is supported for JavaScript, TypeScript, all the languages of that type, which can be put to JavaScript, can be supported very quickly. Then we have a knowledge base supporting Go, HP, PHP, Python, and that's all for the time being. Everything related to drivers, hardware is not interesting for us now because we work with stat analyzer that we developed. And this is the answer to your question why vendors are not claiming that they can do it, because the technology is limited. Thank you.